Halloween 3 is known as the Black Sheep, the Tokyo Drift, the Zelda 2 of the Halloween franchise. For that reason, the series connections we've now come to expect are more tenuous. But if we inspect the movie closely, some of its hidden secrets start to come into view. The story follows Dr. Daniel Chalice, who is called into the hospital to take care of an injured patient and prescribes a medication called Thorazine.
100 milligrams Thorazine.
This calls back to the first Halloween, where Dr. Loomis plans to use the same drug to sedate Michael Myers.
What do I give him when we take him in front of the judge?
Thorazine.
Barely be able to sit up.
That's the idea.
After realizing the suspicious circumstances of the patient's death, Chalice decides to go investigate with the man's daughter, Ellie Grimbridge. Before leaving town, he rings his ex-wife at a payphone. This is the same location featured in Halloween 2, where the nurse Karen announces that she never wants to go to another Halloween party.
Especially not at Stevie Mathis' house.
The biggest connection to the original 2 Halloween movies, though, which many viewers are not aware of, has to do with the reason that the villain, Conal Cochran, has put this elaborate plan into motion. To learn the little-known connection between him and Michael Myers, stick around to the end of this video. 3 more weeks till Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. 3 more weeks till Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Welcome to Things You Missed. Just 1 year after killing off the popular slasher Michael Myers, series producers John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were interested in continuing with their original idea of an anthology series, where each movie would tell an unrelated story taking place on Halloween night. As always, I'll be joined in this video by the literal Prime Minister of Haddonfield, Jimmy Champagne.
It's commonly thought that Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is the only movie in the Halloween franchise that doesn't feature Michael Myers, but that's not exactly true. We see Michael in a commercial for a television airing of the original Halloween, which tells us that Halloween is only a movie in this universe.
Tommy Lee Wallace was excited by the prospect of getting to tell a new story, so after declining to take over Halloween 2, he signed on as the director of the 3rd installment. That's actually his voice in the Silver Shamrock commercials.
All you lucky kids with Silver Shamrock masks, gather round your TV set. Put on your masks and watch.
I learned this while trying to determine if this was the same voice as Dr. Dementia, the horror movie marathon host in the first 2 films.
Lock your doors, bolt your windows, and turn off the lights.
They're similar, but I never did find out if Dr. Dementia was voiced by Tommy.
I mean, I haven't heard otherwise, so let's just go with it.
Halloween 3 is a weird movie, but the same oddities that turned off critics and fans in the early 80s are part of what makes it a cult classic decades later. With that all being said, let's get into the things you missed. The opening credits are displayed over a series of lines appearing close up on a TV screen. We don't know it yet, but what we're seeing is a very zoomed in version of the video that triggers the brainwash sequence. I love how right from the first shot, you already know this movie's gonna be funny, and just the way that this guy runs makes me laugh. An hour later, he arrives at a gas station, where we see the news report about the missing Stonehenge monument.
It weighs more than 5 tons, making its disappearance a mystery indeed.
I'm not exactly sure why Cochran felt like he needed to steal the entire giant stone, because he only ended up using like a small chunk of that monument to enact his plan. Wouldn't it be smarter just to take like the chunk you need instead of removing an entire ancient monument? I get that we find out that all you need is an extremely small speck to do major damage, and that's what ends up in every single Silver Shamrock mask, but still, the amount they're using in these masks is absolutely tiny compared to that massive monument, which everyone realized was stolen.
So the Stonehenge news report sets up the big reveal about what the company's true intentions are. But the next program after this is also significant.
When we come back, Trina will be here to tell you what you can do about junk mail. Stay with us.
Junk mail is a form of overbearing advertising, which ties into the main message of this movie. The entire crux of Cochran's plan relies on children to be brainwashed by the Silver Shamrock commercials that dominate the airwaves in the days leading up to Halloween. Michael Myers may not show up to chase any teenagers this time, but Daniel Chalice is constantly chased by this catchy yet annoying Silver Shamrock jingle. Almost every location in the movie has screens or radios, manipulating children to buy their masks and wear them on the big Halloween night giveaway. There are so many screens, I started to wonder if I wasn't at Universal Studios. That's a stupid joke.
We are totally joking. Universal, please let us come to Halloween Horror Nights this year.
Just as the first Halloween makes a comment about the sexual revolution still ongoing from the 1960s, Season of the Witch taps into concerns of the effects of television on children, a discussion that was still picking up steam from the late 1970s. 70s. Even though television is no longer a relevant medium for young people, the themes of this movie remain pertinent. It was not that long ago that YouTube implemented strict rules regarding content made for children to make sure that they aren't subjected to targeted advertising, and also a bunch of other lame restrictions for some reason. Let's just say it was the only time ever where operating a horror-themed channel actually paid off.
Yo, Zach, let's make a CoComelon horror movie.
Yeah, I'm sure that one won't get us struck down off YouTube immediately. We see the effects of over-advertising towards kids on Chalice's own offspring. They each get silver shamrock masks and huddle around the TV when the commercial comes on.
In 4 days to Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. In 4 days to Halloween, silver shamrock.
Yes, kids, you too can own one of the big Halloween 3. That's right, 3 horrific masks to choose from.
The masks are marketed as the Big Halloween 3. Yes, let's go ahead and get our jokes in about the title of the movie being in the movie. There are many threes or triples in this movie, and I'm not sure how many of them are intentional, so I'm just gonna show them and let you decide. Also of note, the Deadly Silver Shamrock program at the end is airing on 3 different channels. There are perhaps other number games at play here. Mr. Grimbridge's room at the hospital is room 13. If you've seen my Final Destination videos, you know all about how that's the unlucky number, but in this case, it's also the reverse of 31, as in October 31, Halloween night. There are also a lot of instances of the number 6. The motel room that Chalice and Ellie stay in is room 6, the town's curfew goes into effect at 6 p.m., and the activation code for the commercial is 666, the number of the devil. It's not just the numbers that we should be paying attention to though. There are also several names that have a deeper meaning than what meets the eye. When Chalice gets to the hospital, his new patient is Harry Grimbridge, a shop owner who apparently discovered the Silver Shamrock secret and was hunted down by the androids who work for Mr. Cochran. The assassin promptly leaves the hospital, gets into his Plymouth Fury, and self-destructs.
Seeing as John Carpenter produced this movie and was absolutely instrumental in getting it made, this might have been yet another hint as to what one of his future projects would be. That's because his adaptation of the Stephen King novel Christine would come out a few years later. And for those of you who don't know what that's about, it's about a kid who buys a cursed 1958 Plymouth and then ends up destroying it because it has a mind of its own and starts killing people. Now, the car in Halloween 3 isn't an exact match, but it's the same make and model, so I feel like it's worth bringing up nonetheless. Before you light us up down in the comments, I know that John Carpenter has said multiple times over the years that this is his least favorite movie that he's ever made, but I've also seen recently that he started to come around on it, so yeah, I absolutely love it and I watch it all the time. I'm glad he's starting to like it too.
Is there also a second Stephen King connection in Season of the Witch? Probably not, but I'm gonna mention it anyways. Inside Mr. Grimbridge's store, there are these Jack-in-the-Box clowns in a box that says boats. Director Tommy Lee Wallace would go on to direct a production where a creepy clown steals a young boy's boat. It would not come out for another 8 years, however, so I'm just gonna chalk this one up to just being a fun coincidence. Perhaps a more intentional detail can be seen when Ellie is brought in to ID her father after his death. The county sheriff's name badge reads Dunsmuir. Dunsmuir is a small town in Northern California, much like Santa Mira, where the movie takes place. I wouldn't be surprised if Dunsmuir was one of the inspirations for this location, though it seems a little bit less creepy than its film counterpart. Santa Mira is named after a fictional town from an earlier sci-fi horror movie and novel called Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This was the start of a trend. A lot of other properties would borrow this fictional location for their setting, including Airwolf, The Dark Tower, and even the Sharknado franchise. Chalice hangs out in a bar where he is once again bombarded by the overplayed Halloween mask commercial. He asks the bartender to change the channel and he puts on a football game, which we can hear in the background as Ellie Grimbridge introduces herself. Listen to the names called out by the announcer.
It was Chernow and Bernardi who finally brought him down. Not much time to do anything, but Coach Tommy Marshall has been...
These are both references to crew members of the movie. Barry Bernardi was an associate producer, and Tommy Marshall was best boy electrician. There are a few more crew reference Easter eggs that I spotted in the guest book when Chalice and Ellie get to the hotel, including costumer Francis Vega Aubrey, who signs as both Francis Aubrey and Mr. F. Vega, and property master James Rathbone.
Last episode when we covered Halloween 2, I mentioned how Nancy Loomis, also known as Nancy Kyes or Keys, I'm not exactly sure how to say it, appears in each movie in the original Halloween trilogy. This time she plays none other than Dr. Dan Chalice's ex-wife, Linda. I've seen this movie like 20 times and I never connected that Linda is played by the same actress as Annie, mainly because she comes off like such a huge... Another actress who appears in each of the first 3 Halloween movies is Laurie Strode herself, Jamie Lee Curtis, because we of course see her during the television airing of Halloween in this movie.
I guess Dr. Chalice is not a fan. The other Jamie Lee Curtis cameo is a bit more covert. It is her voice that announces the early curfew in Santa Mira.
It's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock. Curfew. Curfew.
There's one other notable cameo appearance, and it comes from Dick Warlock. This is the guy who played Michael Myers in Halloween 2, so we see him unmasked for the first time when he appears as one of Conal Cochran's androids. I know I don't normally talk about actor cameos and things you missed, but it felt relevant to bring up since this is a spiritual successor to the first two movies. It's kind of like how Shock Treatment is a follow-up to Rocky Horror. Similar crew, similar cast, similar artwork and feel, but totally different story. On the drive to Santa Mira, Chalice and Ellie read up on the town.
Proud community, predominantly Irish.
Irish Halloween masks?
California? You never know.
Outside of the company producing the mask being called Silver Shamrock, there are a lot of references to Ireland and Irish culture. So let's just go over all of them to make sure we've got our bases covered. Dr. Chalice and that weirdo he meets both appear to be alcoholics. Heavy drinking is a common trait of the stereotypical Irishman.
Drinking and doctoring, great combination.
Another thing Irish people are known for can be seen in this clip.
The bar he hangs out at is decorated with Irish murals. For example, this one on the back wall is a depiction of Anne Bonny, an Irish pirate from the 1700s. The other businesses in Santa Mira are also themed to Irish culture. Rafferty is a classic Irish name. Dublin is the capital of Ireland. The word shamrock is kind of overused. In addition to the factory, there's also a Shamrock store and a Shamrock Savings. Though personally, I would have gone with Leprechaun Loans. They end up staying at the Rose of Shannon Motel, a reference to the town of Shannon in Western Ireland. The booking office has a huge map of Ireland hanging on the wall. The Kupfer family arrives at the motel in a big RV covered in stickers. It's hard to make them out, but one of them definitely has the colors of the Irish flag. While touring the factory, we learn that Silver Shamrock used to be known for making toys, like these wind-up machines. This one depicts a group of musically inclined insects called the Love Bug Band, which is a reference to an Irish pop band from the 80s known as Love Bug. The depiction of them as insects may also be a connection to the method by which the Halloween masks kill the children. They are zapped by this laser from the Stonehenge piece, which causes their brains to turn into a swarm of insects that come pouring out of their heads. I don't care what you think about this movie, you gotta love that kill.
It's a great practical gag because you see it happen in real time, but it's not actually that hard to throw together.
Finally, there's the big reveal about why Cochran is targeting children. I'm gonna turn on the subtitles and...
All right, roll it. It was the start of the year in our old Celtic lands, and we'd be waiting in our houses of wattles and clay. The barriers would be down, you see, between the real and the unreal. And the dead might be looking in to sit by our fires of turf. Halloween. The Festival of Samhain.
Did you catch that? Although Cochran says it differently than Dr. Sam Loomis did in Halloween 2, he tells us that children are sacrificed during the Festival of Samhain. Remember how Michael defaced the chalkboard, leading Loomis to believe that his crimes were part of a tribute? It turns out that Cochran's plan to eviscerate the minds of American trick-or-treaters comes from a similar motivation, which makes this the only through line between Halloween 2 and Halloween 3.
There is another hint about the true purpose of the Silver Shamrock masks hidden in one small detail at the motel. No Halloween 3 video would be complete without making fun of the, mature relationship between Dr. Chalice and Ellie Grimbridge. I mean, her father just died earlier that week and she's already trying to get it on with a mustache man literally more than twice her age. Seriously, you're going to investigate your father's murder? Why did you even pack that outfit? It's so ridiculous.
Playing an older guy who gets with younger girls is exactly what Tom Atkins was born to do. I mean, have you seen The Fog?
And I'm not even making this up, but I was looking into this movie and learned that the scenes in Santa Mira were filmed at a place called Lolita, California.
I do love a good joke, and this is the best ever.
Despite how unintentionally funny this movie can be at times, and believe me, it can be unintentionally funny. But despite all of that, the way the mystery's set up is actually really well done. Or at least kind of well done. There are a lot of details that set up the fact that the factory workers are robots, like the explanation of the hiring process.
He brought in every damn one of them factory people from the outside. You think he'd hire me, local boy? No way, turn me down flat.
And the realization that the initial assassin's autopsy only contains machine parts.
We've been doing an autopsy on part of the car.
It's still hilarious when you first hear it. There's also a little foreshadowing about the magic element of Cochran's plan. At the motel, a woman named Marge Gutman can be seen reading Carlos Estranada's The Eagle's Gift. From what I understand, this book is about sorcery. Although the magic used to sacrifice the mask-wearing children is referred to as witchcraft, and although one of the big Halloween 3 masks is a witch, there isn't an actual witch in the movie. I read somewhere that Tommy Lee Wallace named it after the Donovan song, Season of the Witch. Great song, but it is also not in the movie. The finale shows us kids going out to trick-or-treat all over the country, which, by the way, includes some beautiful shots of the Halloween sunset. Chalice rescues what he thinks is Ellie, but actually turns out to be Robo-Ellie. Not sure how or why Cochran had the time to make a perfect replica of her just to screw with old Chalice, or why the Robo-Ellie never tries to stop him until after he's destroyed the factory, but whatever, I'm into this.
I gotta say, I love this movie's generous take on how many cities actually celebrate Halloween anymore. I mean, I've lived in LA like 5 years, and I've never once had a kid come to my door to trick or treat on Halloween.
Yeah, I was disappointed to see the lack of decorations on most houses when I moved out here. After fighting her off, he inexplicably leaves the car behind and goes to the gas station where the movie started to try to get the hypnotic advert taken off the air. Who goes trick-or-treating at a gas station? Apparently these kids do, and they gather around the TV as Dr. Chalice begs the programmer to take the commercial off of the 3 channels that it's airing on.
Wait, you never went trick-or-treating at a gas station?
Do they give out gas or candy?
I don't remember.
This brings us back to the main theme that I discussed about Halloween 3. The Silver Shamrock advert is representative of every TV commercial attempting to corrupt and brainwash the youth into becoming their ideal consumer, regardless of any harm that this might be doing to them, physically or psychologically. The bugs and snakes that pour out of the young Kupfer boy's head are symbolic of what is going on inside the heads of children who are exposed to overbearing advertising from a young age. The parents of these kids do show some concern, saying things like don't sit too close or turn down the volume, but ultimately the kids are drawn to the flashy colors and catchy tunes of the broadcast. During the factory tour, we learned that Silver Shamrock used to be a toy manufacturer, and eventually switched to hypnotic masks and television programs. In the 1980s, when this movie takes place, television was reaching the peak of its popularity, and Cochran was just following what the kids were paying attention to. TV shows were the new toys, and Silver Shamrock is a stand-in for any number of malicious private companies ready to take advantage of that.
Like most good movie satire, Halloween 3 was ahead of its time. I think it's because it's hard to notice that stuff when it's still happening all around you, but then when you revisit a movie a few years later, all of the satirical jokes hit you right on the head. It's kind of funny that 40 years later, Stranger Things 3 covered the exact same stuff as Halloween 3.
Yes, and I'll definitely have to think about covering that on my channel sometime soon as well. Hint. But if the years since 1978 have taught us anything, it's that you can't kill Michael Myers. And even if you could, he just won't stay dead for long. The Halloween anthology concept was abandoned after the poor reception of Halloween 3, and in 1988, the prolific slasher would wake up and set his sights on a new target. Which means we've got more things you missed to discuss in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Meanwhile, there is a new Halloween movie, Halloween Kills, just 1 week away. Jimmy's been covering everything related to kills lately on his channel, so head over there and drop him a sub. Otherwise, he'll be forced to
subscribe to Jimmy Champagne, me Champagne, me Champagne, subscribe to Jimmy Champagne on his YouTube.
And click that video on the left. And if you love Halloween, make sure to subscribe to CZ's World for new horrors every week, ring the death bell for all notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Assuming we both survive.